we usually spring, and this year we decided to increase that a little bit and do it in the summer as well. The topics for our summer lecture series are a little bit different. Most of our topics during the year, the rest of the year, are based on military history. This summer, we're doing topics that are of interest to veterans. And as our first speaker, we have a wonderful person here who's going to talk about her experiences and how they shaped her life. But as everyone that knows us knows that we begin every program at the silver side of the pledge. So if you are able, please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At the Silver Sides, our mission is very simple. It's to honor our veterans, and we do that whenever possible. To preserve history, to experience history firsthand, and to educate. This programming is part of our mission to educate the public. We find that it's very difficult for a lot of people to understand something that they don't know anything about. So by bringing lectures on military history and experiences to the public, we feel we serve our mission very strongly. We also explore technology and run children's programming on STEM classes. This is a picture of a class that we teach on submersible remotely operated vehicles. We also teach classes on periscope and a whole variety of military history that relates to our submarine. Coming up in the future, on July 6th, we are going to be having a special day-long event, and it's called Jumping Joe Day. And it highlights a local gentleman from Muskegon during his time in World War II. His time in World War II was extremely different than most people. He was a paratrooper, and he perfected several interesting jumps. He paratrooped in the day before D-Day, and he met his objective, and on his way back to the rendezvous point, he met a few nice young German men. And those nice young German men decided that one of them would take his uniform and one of them would take his dog tag before they turned him over to POW so that they could blend in and they could go back to America at the end of the war. Joe managed to go to 3 different POW camps, escaped from 3 different POW camps. When he escaped for the 3rd time, he decided, not for his own choices, but he ran into some Russians, and he decided to work with them. And he is the only known American to have served on both the Americans and with the Russians during World War II. On July 6th, we will be having a day-long set of activities here. At 11 o'clock, we will be having Sergeant retired Brandon Allen. He's going to talk about paratrooping stories. And we'll have an engine start. Then we'll have a children's officer, Dave DeVisser, coming. He writes a wonderful series of books for children, personifying a tank and a Jeep. It's very extraordinary, wonderful for children. Then at between 3 and 4, we're going to be having a STEM class on paratrooping and teaching that. And then also simultaneous to that, we'll be presenting the Joe Byerly story. We hope that you come and join us. The museum does not receive any state, federal, or local funding. Everything we do is based upon admissions and donations from kind people like you. And we truly appreciate that, and our community is very generous to us during this last year. But in order for us to continue putting out all of these programs, we need your continued support. Our summer series is on June 30th. We'll be having Golden Honor. Then we'll be having Mike Baugh on July 7th on Veteran Service Organizations. Then we have Brett Allen coming on July 14th. We have Wink coming on July 21st. And July 28th, we have an author, Dr. Randy Arrington. And July 4th, we have Dry Care and West Michigan Sale. And then we have on August 11th. So we have a full summer of these. If you are not here in the community, you can just email us at contact us for Riverside Museum, and we'll send you the link to each of these programs. Our series sponsor for the summer series is Mark Kelly, and we appreciate his contributions in making all of this possible. He will be speaking next week here at the museum on Folds of Honor. And for those of you that do not know what Folds of Honor is, it is an organization that provides educational scholarships to spouses and children of Americans fallen and disabled. And it's a wonderful, worthy organization, and it's helped many, many families. And we appreciate him coming to speak on their behalf. Today's speaker is the wonderful Angela Odom. And I only got to know her briefly because of our intern had located her for us. And she is an extraordinary woman that has accomplished so much in her lifetime. She is, sorry, my speech is kind of small and tight there. She is an inspirational speaker, and she's going to talk to us today about many of the things that she did while she was part of her life and everything that she's done post-military. She also has written a book that is out in the lobby there if you're interested in, and she has a new book coming out this Thursday. And so without further ado, I would like us all to welcome Angela.
Oh, thank you. So, well, first, while they're switching, I wanted to say thank you so much to, first of all, Angel for finding me on LinkedIn and having me to come here. And last night, I met Ted and my husband, George, and they are simply delightful, but you all already know that. And so the conversation we had, and I don't think anything's happenstance. See, I came here to share my story with you, but what I gained last night was a perspective on why my teenager is doing what he's doing. Right? So that's the good news, that interacting with people is gay. Now I'm from Georgia. Well, actually, I'm from Mississippi, but I live in Georgia now. And I grew up here expecting to do what I do. And that is, I thought I'd meet some veterans and it would make me feel good on the inside. I thought I'd share the story of my two soldiers who lost their lives, and that would somehow help me to move forward. Thought I'd do all that. And today I actually got to go on the inside of a submarine. That was like, I'm telling you, Frank, you are amazing. You're a great storyteller. And, I just gained so much insight and so much more respect for the men who had to do that very dangerous mission and honorable mission. So thank you for that. I really do appreciate it. You just don't know how to feel right now. Thank you. I appreciate you. So when, for me, I want to just first say that this is the day that the Lord has made. And I choose to be glad in it. I want to, first, before I even start, I want to just acknowledge the veterans in the room. And I want to just say thank you for your service and for your sacrifice. Thank you to the family members who have supported them, and that is in and out of service. That's like a really big deal. It's a really, really big deal. So thank you. Any veterans, raise your hand or nod or something, or give me like a, hey, yeah, I see you. All right. That right there is the response that we get most of the time from veterans, because the veterans are so humble. They're like, hold up, don't put the spotlight on me. Don't do that. But I want you to know that you are very much appreciated. So for me, what I find is that most Americans profess to truly love our veterans, especially at gatherings like this and during Veterans Day and the Memorial Day season. And while those feelings are usually sincere, it's important to remember that veterans are defending us 365 days a year. the heroism that has been demonstrated time and again by veterans from the American Revolution to the global war on terrorism is sometimes unnoticed. Unnoticed by us, people who are actually enjoying the security that their sacrifice has provided. There are so many appropriate ways to acknowledge veterans. First and foremost, just know and be aware of the accomplishments and of the sacrifices. Because fewer than 10% of Americans can claim the title veteran. And far less than 1% of our population is currently serving and defending us right now today around the globe. So I want to tell you that tens of thousands don't come home. They don't come home alive. Hundreds of thousands return home with invisible wounds like PTSD, depression, severe anxiety, TBI, traumatic brain injury, and psychological tolls as a result of prolonged exposure to combat-related stress, and sometimes just a multiple rotation. And so those are the things we don't see. And for me, I think it was the first few months after I retired, I felt disconnected. I was disconnected from my social network, from my family, from my friends, and from the Army. I would look at people and listen to them talk about their issues, and I would be like, are you kidding me? Right? It was as if I was grieving the loss of a lifelong friend as I was retiring and transitioning. And actually, after I reflected, I retired in 2015. After I reflected, I think it was I just missed engaging with like-minded people who just innately understood my mannerisms, my language, my tone. I find that sometimes my tone is distressing to people. That is funny to me, right? After 27 years in the Army, I assume that some military people pretty much have the same or similar tones until we can, dial it back when necessary. So for me, it was a culture shock to go from working with soldiers and living on military installations to working from home and living in small suburban towns in Georgia. So the closest military installation to me is a couple hundred miles. The active duty one is about a couple hundred miles. So I kind of just took for granted the built-in social networks that are really easy to form when we're surrounded by other military people from whatever branch. Like I'm Army, and I can see a sailor or another person, and we're going to make jab with one another. It's like that's just what we do, right? Air Force, we're going to say something, off color. That's just what we do. It is. Marines, I don't really talk to Marines. I'm joking, I do. But it is a good thing to be in this space right now with other veterans. And so I appreciate the opportunity to be here. So I grew up in Jackson, Mississippi, in a house with 5 siblings, 3 girls, 3 boys. My mother and father divorced when I was 3. You couldn't tell because he was always there. He was always around. We had love overflowing. Although we lived below the poverty line. I remember probably at 10 or so, I asked my mom, I said, are we poor, middle class, or rich? She responded by laughing, throwing her head back, tears coming out of her eyes. I mean, she thought it was so funny that I would ask that. And she thought it was so funny, she called her sisters, and she told them, and they laughed. And she said, baby, we are very, very poor. You see, I didn't know it because my mom could do anything with a chicken. Right? She could bake it, fry it, grill it. She could barbecue it. She could make chicken, tetrazzini, everything. And so we always had lots of love, lots of engagement, lots of activities, all that sort of thing. And I was always told that I was, I had pretty eyes, that she loved the way my voice sounded. She always, when I did something, it was like, oh, this is a big deal. She had 5 other kids, but I don't know the difference. She made it all feel special, right? And she would say, you are some kind of lady. I was 10. So why is this important? Validation. Validation is critical and it's important. And my father, he would just mimic whatever she was saying, but he just didn't say it the same way. Good job. Way to go. That's what my father would say. So I'm sharing this with you because in at the end of my I think my middle of my senior year, I decided I was going into the military because I no longer wanted to be a burden to my mom. I decided that I wanted to join the Army Reserve, right? I wanted to join the Army Reserve, and I did it with one of my high school friends. And I could not because I needed my mom's signature, right? She refused to talk about it. She she was just like, you're not doing that. Don't bring it up. And I was like, oh, that's kind of odd. So I waited till my birthday. And after my birthday, I signed the papers myself. I don't know where you all came up. I don't know what kind of family dynamics you have, but I got a beat down. Have you ever heard of a beat down? Y'all never heard of, y'all don't have this kind of parents. Yeah, I got a beat down. I did. And I learned from that to, yes, just take the beat, just go, because I'm going for this, right? And the reason I did it was because that's what she had taught me to do my entire life. The first time I ever defied her, by the way, that was interesting. And so I went to the University of Southern Mississippi. So I graduated from high school in '84 and went to the University of Mississippi that fall, and then the following year I went to basic training, and we graduated, and my mom was there at Fort Jackson. You know how people sing like basic training, marching up and they're singing. And so she's standing there, and I could see her from a distance, and she's like this. And then when it was all over, she said, I could hear you singing above everybody. And I was like, oh. So she was proud, right? She was proud. And then I think it was maybe just a few months after that, she apologized. Not for the beat down. I still think she was going to apologize, but no, she did not. She apologized because she could not pay for my tuition, right? And she said, baby, I'm sorry, but I just don't have it. Just don't have it. So I went over to the ROTC building, and I was able to get a 3-year Army ROTC scholarship. So the question of military entrepreneur and author experiences, I'm sharing that with you because that's the reason I served. So I participated in Desert Storm, Iraqi Freedom, 3 separate combat environments. I served 27 years, and I'm a very proud Army veteran. But the reason I joined was because I did not want to be a financial burden to my mom, right? And then, by the way, I had to finish college. I was like going back to our house, right? So that's my story. I'm sticking with it. That's my story. Yes, it is. So I was when I graduated from Southern Miss. I graduated from Southern Miss. I was a homecoming queen. The Ku Klux Klan marched down Main Street in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, in protest of the second Black homecoming queen in the school district. I did not care. You know why? Because I had validation from my family. I couldn't wrap my brain around why grown men in robes would care that, this 21-year-old is over here hanging out with college students. It did not matter to me. So I graduated with as a second lieutenant. I'm an AG officer, adjutant middle corps, which is HR in the Army. And And the truth is, I thought I was going to be in the reserves, but apparently um, I did well enough to go on active duty. I didn't read the contract. That was another lesson all by itself. Read the fine print every time. So that's why I joined, and at my first duty station, which was at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, I was worked in a replacement detachment, repo replacement detachment, and lo and behold, at Fort Bragg, that's when Desert Shield, Desert Storm, kicked off. And I went over. This is my battalion commander here, Tom Owens, who happened to be a graduate of Southern Mississippi. Right? I didn't know why he was looking out, but he was looking out for everybody. But when he was going to leave, he'd bring me back like a bird from Southern Miss. And I'd be like, who is this guy? And my boss, right? My boss's boss. Then I thought that was really neat. So I have two personal standards and two professional standards. Personal standards as in how I carry myself, the reason I do most of the things I do. Professional standards, how I conducted myself while serving, and how I thought I would interact and engage with soldiers. So my mom, Hattie, I have two Hatties. Hattie, my mom, and then Hattie, her mother-in-law. My mom, my father's mom. And then Colonel Tom Owens here, my first battalion commander. And then I also have another retired Colonel Basil Montgomery, who at the time was married to another. He was married to another officer, and they had prison reports. So between these four people, I got a glimpse of what right looked like, from my perspective, from a young 20-something-year-old perspective. One of the things I learned from Tom Owens while we were in Saudi Arabia was to always stick up for your soldiers. I saw my battalion commander actually go toe-to-toe with his boss. My battalion commander was a lieutenant colonel, his boss was an 06. We were a colonel. We were postal. I was doing the mail, right? I don't know if you remember before email, before text messaging, the real mail. And so at this time, it was stacks and stacks and stacks of mail coming in. And doing the mail. And my, the 18th Airborne Corps Commanding General at the time was his wife was not deployed. She was actually had been in the Army. But she was sending him mail. She was sending him letters. And he would be on the phone with her. And she would say, honey, I mailed you a letter. So guess what would happen? One of his XOs or someone would come to the little post office with the lieutenant and say, hey, I'm looking for the CG's mail. I'm like, well, it probably took like 3, 4 weeks to get here, not here yet. So my boss, that's what I learned from him. He went on the side of that building and he told that colonel, I should come back down here and mess with my lieutenant. When she come back down here with that foolishness, right? He said choice words that I'd never heard my father say. And that was what I learned from Tom Owens. And so that's the reason I stayed in the Army was when my mom was getting sick, right? She was getting sick, and so what she would do is everywhere I would go, every place I would go, she would come and she would be able to stay. She did some rest, right? Do you want to have any places you have to go get some rest away from your daily? So she would get some rest, and she would always ask, where we going next, baby? Where we going next? And so I left Fort Bragg and went to, I was stationed in Alaska, I was stationed in Alabama, which I love, recruiting, and back to Virginia, and then of course to Fort Carson, Colorado, with the cutter, with the CENTCOM, and that was right after 9/11. Went over as an individual augmentee and served with all different nations at that time. I was the reason I stayed was because at the for other people, the reason we do things matter. And I want you to know that Tom Owens and I still in contact. And Vasil Montgomery, my mentor, also is still in contact. And then the reason I retired. So when I was in Virginia, the Human Resources Command, I became a mom. Right? My son was 14 months. Now that picture right there is I was at the War College, but now he's like this at 16. But the reason I retired was I got promoted to colonel. Ceremony was April of 2011. My mom passed 2 months after that. And I went to War College and then to Fort Jackson, South Carolina. So I started at Fort Jackson and I ended at Fort Jackson. But one day I was microwaving. You all probably did this, but I am not. I was microwaving and I heard my son use a word that he had not heard from me. It was an ugly word, right? And I said to him, he was probably 6 years old. So where did you hear that word from? And I'm just going to give it a boy named Johnny. He's like, well, I heard it from Johnny. I was like, oh. And then I think it was a couple of days passed and some music came on and that little fellow was gyrating. He was moving his body. And I said, oh, where did that stands from? I learned it from you and Johnny. So the next day I went in and I told my boss, I'm retired. I'm retired. Because I was dropping my son off at 6 in the morning, 5:30, 6 in the morning. I would see him probably at 6, 7, 8 at night. I would see him maybe a day, a week, a month at a time. That meant that as my mom had validated me, I was allowing other people to do that for him at this point. And that was unacceptable. So that's the reason I retired. And so I tell you that part because really those 13 moves I had in between, moving every 1 to 3 years, going to all these different places, training, reading, mentoring, engaging with other people, to me was all the same. Pack your stuff. Have the movers come in, break some stuff on the other end, right? Get settled, get whatever the mission was, whatever the position was, and then learn your job, engage with people, and move again. The personalities were similar. There was always a bully. There was always a loudmouth. There was always a group of competent people serving for the right reasons. But it was always the same. And for me, I was mostly the only woman, the only Black, the only whatever in that the core group of leadership. And so I will tell you that I could out-cuss, pray, work. I could outdo, all of that. It didn't matter to me that people were cursing and smoking, and I think it's smoking in buildings at that time and everything, right? And so it didn't matter to me because, again, they did not validate me, right? And so that's the theme throughout. If you don't get anything else from me, is hear people talk about how difficult it must have been, how difficult it is now. And I believe it is difficult only because of who validates them, where their values are, what's important to them, what goals they have lined up. So in between those 13 or so moves, at the beginning, I would set a goal for that particular move, that position. While I was there, I would say, you know what? I'm going to get my master's doing this move. I'm going to finish it up. Or then this right here, I think, you know what? I'm going to get out of debt. And that took like a few moves, by the way. And so each time, and then on the one move, I said, I'm going to be a mom, right? So each time for me, as life was happening, and we were, making it a great, safe place for everybody else, then that's what I would encourage anyone to have your own goals, know what your values are, and oh, by the way, know who validates you. So I was cussed out using real curse words. Okay, right? I'm not saying it's good or bad, I'm just telling you that I didn't care. This person standing in front of me, barking, whatever that was, I didn't care. Of course, I was like this. But it did not bother me because I had goals of my own, right? And I knew that my mom was proud of me. So I'm a mama's girl, you had to figure that out. Um, so I retired after 27 years, 11 months, and 11 days, right? No, it's just a few hours. Just a few hours. So during the transition period, I went through Boots to Business. It was a SBA program, fantastic opportunity. It was online, and I thought it would be like a breeze. Of course, I've been in the Army. You go in, you just step in, somebody's gonna, help you with this, and you're gonna read, and it's gonna be okay. It was hard, right? It was because it was just so many new concepts for me. But guess what? It was the best prep work I could do as I was actually getting out there. So I would encourage anyone to go through the SBA or Boost to Business or I think they have a reboot now is what they call it. And so within the first year of retirement, I started my personal development training company. And it's for women in supervisory and managerial positions. I teach women how to lead themselves and others and how to manage processes. And then I wrote my first book, which is a memoir of the deployment to Iraq. And so I'm just going to tell you about that, just a little bit about it. So I was promoted to lieutenant colonel, and I was on the alternate list for battalion command, which means that list was only if something happened, right? The people that were primary, then they were giving, they were already selected for a specific location to command. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm on the alternate list, whatever, it's okay, it's all right. And I got a call. My son was, when I got the call, he was probably 13 months. We had just celebrated his birthday, first birthday. Amazing, right? It was an amazing birthday party. And then I got the call from my assignment officer and said, hey, we have an opportunity for you to command. The thing is, your unit is already on their way to Iraq. And I need to know within 24 hours, it could be the 24 48 hours, it's so long. And so I said, how you do? I was like, okay, thank you. And then when I got off the phone, I prayed. I closed the door to my office and I prayed, and then I just went on the wall and I just slid down the wall, sobbing. See, what I knew was that I could lead, I could mentor. I knew that I knew how to build teams. I know that it's the Army. I know we're going to work together. I already knew that. So that wasn't my issue. My issue was I asked God to be a mom. And I was praying for command. Double win, I got both. So I called my niece and her newlywed husband. They had just been married a couple months. And I cried through the whole conversation. And after it was over, she said, yes. I said, no, you're married now. Talk to your husband, to make sure it's good. So they did. And they actually cared for my son. I left him at 14 months, for 14 months. And what the book actually talks about, it details that portion, but it talks more of the contributions of the unit, 15 Personnel Services Battalion. So this is not a book about men who kick in doors. This is a book about support personnel who support the men who kick in doors, right? And I did say men, because at that time, that's what it was. Now the Army has opened up various specialties for women. And I am very proud of that. I'm happy for them. But at that time, it was only So this is what the book talks about, really the routineness of being away and what that looks like, what the day-to-day life is. So our mission while there, we had units in 26 separate locations, elements in 26 separate locations. And we were responsible for the mail, like the real mail. Get it? When I was a lieutenant, I was responsible for I was the XO for one postal company. Then as a battalion commander, was responsible for the postal delivery in the southern half of Iraq. That plus personal accountability and then other essential personnel services. And nothing significant is done alone. Nothing. When you hear people talking about I did this, I did that, I always like, nah, you didn't do it by yourself. Right? So I had Command Sergeant Major Timothy Livinggood. Tim Livinggood was a 6 foot, I don't think, 3, bald head, steely eyed. He was a baby. I didn't like him when I first met him. Man, I couldn't stand him, right? Guess what? He didn't like me. He didn't like me either. I first met him. He did not. I didn't trust him. You know why? I was on an alternate list, which means that something happened with the primary. The primary was actually relieved, but the sergeant major stayed. And I said to him, I don't trust you. But whatever happened, that means you didn't protect this guy, right? So I'm looking at you, and he's like, I'm looking at you too. Right? Yeah, I'm looking at you too. So we did that behind doors, back and forth sniping. Until one day, our brigade commander was having a meeting. We flew up to, I think there's 2 minutes, flew up on the meeting, and he had 9 sets of command teams there. And I was, what would I say? I was being very loud, and I was challenging my brigade commander in front of the entire team. And every time he would say, like, that was enough, there was a code like, my brigade commander. And I would keep talking until my sergeant major slid a note in front of me. And the note said, stop talking. And I stopped talking. I stopped talking because, whatever, I was about to probably get my neck cut off. But that's when I started to trust him. I knew we were a team, right? Afterwards, he said, you were saying the right things, but that wasn't the right time. And he said, you couldn't even read his face? I said, I didn't care about his face. He said, that's the point. And what did I learn from my sergeant major? I learned that to shut my big old mouth, right? And listen more than I talk. Whoa. It was people been trying to teach me that my whole life. But that's what I learned from my sergeant major. Tim Livinggood actually retired from the Army, and then he was a contractor going back and forth into the theater, and he had a heart failure while there, and he passed away. And that was 2015, February 2015, I believe. So while at his funeral, right, we flew down to Texas, had our Stetsons on, and all this. And his 2 sons, they are amazing men. They stood up and they read a letter from their father, the oldest one. He read the letter from his father, and he's standing there, the casket there straight with the flag. And he's talking as he's reading. It was a letter from Tim to the kids, to his sons, telling him, I'm going to, when I come back, like he had just, I think, a week or so before he would come back. When I come back, I'm going to, I'll be at your lacrosse game. When I come back, we're going to do, we're going to go to this, whatever event that he's been asked me to go for. Son was in college at the time, the oldest one. He was talking about all those things that they were going to do. And as the son read the letter, I realized that the son didn't know his father the way I knew his father as far as the service part of him, military service. He knew him as dad, as a hero. And so that's when I decided to write Bronco Strong. I wanted to write it for all of those family members who had questions about, what did my dad or my mom do while serving? What did that look like to them? And so that's the reason I wrote Bronco Strong. And we had two soldiers to lose their lives there. Sergeant First Class John J. Tobiason and Staff Sergeant Lillian Clemens. And I always want to say their name. I always want to say their name because they're not just a number, right? And so I wanted to make sure that they were always acknowledged for their tremendous sacrifice. Inside the book, the way it's laid out is my account. Then there is accounts from other people that served, other soldiers that served along with us at that time. Their account of October 10th, 2007 and November 28th, 2007. And so that was two separate accounts. And while we were there, Sergeant Major Livingston and Tim and I had our lieutenants and our privates to write their Why I Served stories. And those stories were published in the 1775, which is the Adjutant General's Journal. And we were granted permission to reprint those stories at the end of the book. So it's three different perspectives of the same time frame. I thought it would be too much for just my take. That would be ludicrous. Nothing significant is done alone. So that's what Bronco Strong is all about. And so what I found is that it's helping more people than I ever thought. Sergeant John J. Tobiason's brother, his sister and brother are my Facebook friends. So his brother said, "Thank you for writing the book. I've given one to my, I believe, 2 children. They can now know about their uncle," right? And so I am not a good writer, right? I'm a good storyteller. I know a whole bunch of help, editing and all those kinds of things. The cover of the book, how to market it, all those things. Nothing significant is done alone. So I just want to tell you that. So within the first year of retirement, I volunteered at my son's elementary school. Imagine, will you, never having the opportunity to go to my son's school during the day. I was out of control. So I did their trips, right? The chaperone trips. It got so that the teachers would call me up and say, "Hey, Miss Odom, I have a trip coming up. Can you come and be the chaperone?" I was like, "Oh, you're not my son's teacher." "Oh, yes, I understand. But can you come?" Like, "Sure, I can come." And so I did that for, he was in the 5th grade, 5th grade. I did it, and it turned out we started having little fights, right? The kids were picking on him. And so he said, "Mom, can you let some of the other moms do some of this? Stop coming up to my school." He said, "Is there something else you can do?" And I was like, I thought I was doing the right thing. But yeah, there you go. So I had to step back. I even got I went through their parenting classes or how to help them with the homework. I was like, this is too much. It was too much for him. I enjoyed it, but I had to pull back. And so I know that it was good for me, not so good for my son. So I still do a little volunteering. Well, not last year, of course, but I don't do so much. The second year I retired, I earned a personal development coaching certification. Now in the Army, I was mentoring people. I'm going to tell you how that started. When I was at Fort Bragg, I was, what was I? You know what, if I say drop and give me 10, do you know what that means? It means to do some push-ups for me, right? So I was a lieutenant, and I thought that was a good thing. I went to my mom. I went to Mississippi, Georgia, Mississippi, And I was all excited, telling her about this story, right? That I had dropped the soldier. She was washing dishes or doing something in the kitchen. She had her back to me like this. And the more I talked, slowly she turned around. And by the time she got back here, she was not smiling. She was not engaged. She was not enjoying my story. And she said, "Is that what they're teaching you?" And I said, "Well, what's wrong with you?" Yeah, that's what, that's how you do it. That's what everybody does. Said, that's not what I taught you. What do you think that soldier learned from that? And I was like, have his boots squared away. And she was like, no. What he learned was to be afraid or to avoid you. He learned that you are someone who will diminish him. And that could be your brother, that could be your cousin, you name different people. And here I go from my smile, thinking I had done something great, to my face down and embarrassed. And I said, but that's how everybody does it. She said, that's not how you are going to do it. You should probably get out of the army if that's what you want to do. They probably didn't, well, I was assimilating, but in the wrong manner, right? And when I went back to Fort Bragg, my whole perspective shifted. Oh, by the way, I'm still the what? I'm the mama's girl, right? And so I decided that I would actually teach, mentor. I would be a good role model. I would not diminish. I would correct people behind closed doors. I would, acknowledge and give high fives and accolades in public. And it just shifted my whole way of thinking. So when I would see other people do that, I was like, that's not good. Not the way you do it. Because that's what my personal standard had taught me, right? And so when I, all throughout my career, that's what I was doing. I can tell you, I'm telling you right now that there's no perfection in me. It's always about progress. Always about progress. Always trying to get better, learn more. At the end of my career at Fort Jackson, me along with, I don't know, there was maybe 10 other senior military women, we established a women's mentoring organization on Fort Jackson, which is codified today, which means an operation order, which means from the CG, the Commanding General of Fort Jackson, it's still going, still continuing now, a women's mentoring organization. And who knew that crazy lieutenant who was out dropping folks, thinking that was the right thing to do, to be a part of something that's going to help people for years. And so I'm very grateful for my mama's, I guess it wasn't a beat down, so that was a good thing, right? But I do appreciate the lesson that she taught me. When I retired, people continued to reach out. They would say, hey, can you come and do my promotion ceremony? Can you come and, we're getting married or we're having whatever, can you attend this? For the first 2 or 3 years, I want to know that I can still fit into my uniform. And so I am actually going to read the oath for a lieutenant colonel. I think it's the 26th or something in July. And I said to him, hey, I can't get in that uniform, so you sure you want me? He's like, yes, man, just come on. So I'm just telling you that it's still such a joy, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to still be the person to be asked to attend. But that third year, I started doing more and more ceremonies and volunteered at the USO, volunteered with the AARP in the 4th year, the Veterans Advisory Board, and then I was asked to contribute to Camouflage Sisters, which is 10 senior military women each wrote one chapter. The name of my chapter is Beyond Competence, because it takes more than competence to be an effective leader. And I learned that from Tom Owen, and I learned it from Phil Montgomery. Because you can have all the book smarts, right? You can be skilled, but then you can still be workable, right? You can still be a person who no one respects. You can still be someone who is, nasty and mean. So you're not really effective because you're not really getting results. You're not really getting the job done. So that's what my chapter is about. And that book is part of a series. There's a retired Army warrant officer who has, I think, maybe on like the eighth or ninth book. So what she does is she reaches out to women, former and active duty, all service, and they tell their story in book form. She wants you to share your story. And some of the books are themed on sexual trauma. Some of them are just leadership. Some are, whether they're entrepreneurs, whatever it is, they get to tell their story. So I was grateful to be asked to contribute to that. And then in 2020, I became a poll worker. I mean, who even knew I had time to do that? But I learned how to be a poll worker. This whole retirement thing is like amazing. And then this year, 2021, I started a podcast. The name of my company is the Better You Project. So I'm the founder of the Better You Project brand, and I started the Better You Leadership Podcast in January. I don't mind failing because I believe that's where the learning takes place. I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how to do a podcast. I didn't care. I was like, okay, this is Anchor. This is how you do this. And I just started talking. And then people started showing up. That's pretty weird, isn't it? And so I love this whole community of women. And then I wrote Gollum's Magical Gamers, the children's book. So think about that. I was in the Army for 27 years, focused on leading and mentoring. And, I don't know anything about children's books. I'm going to say that face right there is my son when he was like 10, 8 or 9, 10. So I had a conversation with my oldest niece, the same niece and husband who kept my son. I had a conversation with her. Her son is, he's 4 or 5 years old now. So in January, she's like, he just said to me, Mommy, soon you won't have to read to me because I'm going to train in kindergarten. That's what he's telling his mom. He said, because I know my sight words. And she said, well, I've got to get him some more books. I've got to do, I've got to get on the ball, right? And so I was talking to her and I was like, well, why don't you just write one? She was like, are you kidding me? I was like, by the end of that conversation, I decided that I would do it, right? I would write the book and I didn't know what the storyline would be. For me, it was irrelevant at that time. And no, I don't know how to write children's books, but I am a good storyteller. So I wrote the book. I reached out to a professional artist. He did 23 images for me and, placed them in there. I have editors, and I reached out to the people who know how to put it in the correct format for Kindle and for paperback. There's a guy right this minute doing the audio book portion, right? And then I got a friend of mine reached out and said, hey, I'm going to help you with the video. I want to do an animated video version. That's what I said. All the different kids, right, based on their ages. The book will be officially released tomorrow. I think that's pretty cool. Yeah. And so the story, so I was inspired by my niece and her conversation with her son. And then my son's birthday was last Thursday. He turned 16. So at the time I was thinking, wow, this is great. What I'll do is I'll teach him about residual income and having multiple streams of income. And once I get all the money out that I put in, then I'll turn that over to him. And I was all excited about it. I was telling him about it. And he was looking at me like, I'm not taking any money for that. I didn't. I didn't write that book. Like, what kind of kid is this? What do you mean? So that's what Kate helped me understand, that it wasn't being a crazy teenager. It was that, wow, he's an okay kid, right? And so thank you, Kate, for that. The book, the whole story of, storyline for the book is, initially it was about the pandemic, separation, isolation. These kids are, inside, doing the virtual school, all this kind of thing. And, they can't get to one another. And they are, meeting on a virtual call. And these are cousins all over the place. And, somehow, they actually have to go, down to the basement. My son has to go to the basement to get some things. And he ends up on the inside of a video game. And there he meets his cousins, like in person. They can hug and talk and, they can high five and all this kind of thing. So they have to go through a series of levels to actually be able to get out of the game and return home. On the way there, they encounter conflict, depression, and self-doubt. All the things grown-ups say they're dealing with. So why not, in my mind, break it down so that the children can have a conversation about it with their parents, right? So that's what that's about. And let me just tell you one more time, nothing significant is done alone. And so the things I learned in, while serving in the Army, just transferred those skills. The one is, without fear, trying something new. So that's for 27 years, moving from every 1 to 3 years. That's what that looked like. Show up at a location and they're like, oh yeah, I know we told you we're coming here for, to do this job. Nope, you're gonna do this. I'm like, oh. Nobody cares. Get over there and do it. Okay, yes, sir, got it. And so that's the same mentality I've taken into my retired life. Just to get to do it. Nothing significant is done alone. We're going to do the book launch on July 27th, for release tomorrow, and it'll be launched here really soon. So, my name is Angela Odom. I'm a life and leadership coach. I teach women how to lead themselves and others and how to manage processes. And I am an awfully proud Army veteran. I appreciate the opportunity just to come and be with you today. And I appreciate you all listening. Some of you nodding, some chuckle. And I do thank Peg and Angel again for the opportunity. And also, I didn't know the young lady's name in the back, but I want you all to know that I sent her a PDF of my presentation. She put it into PowerPoint. So this right here, this whole space, I just love this whole energy. So thank you so much for that.
Amber,
thank you.
nothing ever happens without each other.
Right.
And that's how it happens around here each and every day. And this museum is so lucky for each and every one of the staff members and the volunteers who all work together, and they all take their part and they do their part, and greatness comes of it.
Greatness definitely comes of it.
And so we appreciate that. And so we will.
So with that said, I am grateful for the opportunity, and I thank you for this. I'm going to take my seat and take some questions.
Yeah, you're gonna take some questions. And I have a microphone down here for you,
Okay.
because I know I have that big booming voice, and not everybody does. And so I want to say thank you, and I thought that was a wonderful presentation. Question, please, put your hand up and I will hand you the mic. Or Tom will do that for me. Thank you, Tom.
I have a plug.
Okay.
I read the book. It's very good. Angela and I talked past in our military career. When I came here to intern, Peg said, oh, I've got this summer series that I want you to find guest speakers. And I said, great. I'm an introvert, not anymore, I guess. But I went on to LinkedIn and I saw Angela, and I was like, oh, I know her. So I got her book off Amazon, read it, cried, because her story's like mine. We're both AG officers. And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna ask her if she wants to come. So Peggy, and Peggy says, sure, just I wanted to have something to do with education for the veterans. I go, well, she's an entrepreneur, and she goes, that'll be good. I go, she even wrote a book I read, and it's really good. So Peggy said, go ahead. And then it was a snowy day, and I FaceTime Angela out on where she could see the submarine in the snow, and I said, oh, Angela, you would love to come here. And I said, please come here and talk to the veterans. And then I gave her the USS Suicide mission, and she was funny because she said, Angel, you actually read the book. I said, yes, I did. But you have to read, if you're like me and you've gone to Iraq or served somewhere with war, you have to read this book in your own privacy because lots of things come out of your eyes. But the death of her soldier affected me because it happened in our family. And she got promoted, her mom passed. Same thing happened to me. I knew her own mom passed months after. So I did cry a lot in my own privacy stuff now. But this is a great book for anybody. I was gonna get some for my AAG soldiers that are coming up, but great book. So that's my plug. I'm gonna sit down. Great book, and I did read the other one, but this is my favorite.
So that whole thing of her doing the Facebook Live and showing me the submarine, that's what got me here. So Frank, thank you for the other part of that. That was awesome.
So do we have any questions from the audience about any of the topics that we covered today?
Yes, ma'am. Retired from like yourself. Transportation. I was over there, second rotation, commanded 766 trans. We had the heads. Although for a while I had a brigade. We had 20, I inherited the first rotation. We had around 2,400 soldiers in my command for about a month. I felt sorry for my staff. Yeah, they were, because you know, at the time, I organized 700 and 750. We brought back memories. We were there in '04, April. Excuse the language, April whole course sucked. I recommend more Purple Hearts, bringing that back. I ever want to recommend it. I thought I had Purple Heart Battalion. I did lose 2 soldiers like you did. I remember their names. One, the son was not born yet. The other one, I didn't know that soldier well. Then, I can remember when he left from that country. Special Forces, I didn't know him well. He was in my Texas National Guard unit. But I did see the vehicle that he got killed in on the ID. Yeah, especially because you're the one giving the orders.
Yeah.
It was my orders. It was my orders. I was the commanding officer. Yes, we gave, I got to go ahead and get it done. Well, I thought I was going to get fired. We were rotating about 5 divisions in and out of Iraq at the time. Moving patrol battalions off the ball. Oh God, yes. You know, it's like phase 2-star, angry 2-star general.
Yep.
Yeah. We were all going like, well, see, I should pack my bags. Then I come to find out, when I had a good staff, I was lucky, we've been together for 2 years before we got deployed. So they knew me and I knew them. I could read my mind before I could think what I was thinking. And that day I found out, well, did we get the mission? They go, no, sir. And then the general looked off, did you? I go, no, sir, we did. And I went down all the line units. And I was thinking, God, thank God not to. That's when I got to know General Stoltz.
Didn't know him, but no, okay.
Yeah, well, I worked for him.
Wow.
Actually, our group,
That's
and he
good.
was the Transcom commander forward. And he took over the situation. Happy to say, I only put him in charge of that. He was one of the best, probably the best general I've ever had the pleasure of working for. It was, you know, it made me think about all the years, and then she's smiling. She's been married to me long enough to gone through all that fun. And then when they were deployed, our two girls had just come to us. We adopted them. So in August, they get a new dad. By December, I'm packing my bags for a year away from home. Yeah. It's, I was a reservist, but yeah, it doesn't change. The Desert Storm you went over, I was in the Fort Transit Transportation. Our short list is who didn't go. It's just about our whole brigade with transportation. We're just mobilizing everybody. And off they went. You know, some decisions I made were good, and some I made. One I'm kicking myself. I should have fired six. There was an incident, there was a command issue. My staff said I should have listened to them. I didn't want to rotate the whole command structure before the end left, but I should have.
Do you have, thank you so very much. Do you have any other questions or comments or anything for our speaker? If not, she will be in.
Yes, thank you.
She will be outside of the theater here if anyone is interested in purchasing the book. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming. Those of you that are local, we hope to see you again for the subsequent weeks. If you are not local and you're interested in the topic, please send an email to the to us at the museum, and we will send you the Zoom link. And thank you for everyone attending here. Thank you for everyone that has Zoomed in today for our lecture. And just remember that the USS Silverside serves its mission of honoring our veterans, and we do it through education and preservation. And it is the most important thing that we can do is to bring education and knowledge to the community, help them understand what our veterans went through. So thank you very much, everyone, for coming. And without further ado, we will see you all hopefully next week as well. Thank you. Where